A Fountain of Fun is a celebration of parks. This is the first episode of the 8th season of Barney and Friends. I am continuing my journey with watching the first episode of each season to see how the show progresses. And by this point, I am too old for Barney. This was 2003. Well, I'm technically too old for Barney. In 2003, I would have been 11, so definitely no longer the target audience age for Barney, and this is most certainly not an episode I would have seen when I was younger. We still have the I Love You song, so there's still that great nostalgia there. But I have to say, watching it for the first time as an adult, it's a really good episode with some great messages, and this is the first time I've noticed some differences with Barney. One main difference, and that's with the editing. Now, this may happen in previous episodes, but obviously I'm just watching the first episode of each season. And in this one, particularly during a certain song, we have different editing, and it kind of pulls us away from the location and makes it a little bit more techy, and I don't like it. And it was fine. The editing quality was good, but putting these brightly coloured frames around close-ups of the children's faces just kind of pulled the viewer, at least me, away from what was happening and made it feel less like I was there and less like I was part of this and more like I was watching a TV show. So I feel like that really is a bad decision because it makes it less immersive. And sure, it looked okay, but I don't think it was a good idea because part of the thing with Barney is that you're meant to be one of those children and you can use your imagination and be there with them. But as soon as you put in editing that says, hang on, you're not just a fly on the wall, this is an edited TV show, it kind of detracts from that. So I didn't really like it. But the rest of it felt like a Barney episode. And we have our 4 children who are learning more about the park and enjoying the park. They're waiting for the arrival of this fountain. I'll talk about the fountain in a little bit. But we have some really good songs. I recognised, I think, 2, maybe 3. I kind of recognised the Mr. Sunshine song. It rang a faint bell, but not completely. But She'll Be Coming Round the Mountain, I loved. And then they play I Spy, which I think is always something that a lot of children love to get engaged with and, play along with Barney. And then there's a story. And it's a story about different animals in the parks. There's an educational element there. Children can also go and, try and find those animals themselves outside. And I think anything that encourages children to get outside and spend time outdoors is a good thing. And this does. Most of this takes place outdoors. And most people have access to parks, even in the most, urban environments. There's like a little tiny city park somewhere. So I feel like it's definitely something that's, in most cases, can be replicated at home. They also sang When Our Band Begins to Play to the tune of When the Saints Come Marching In. And then we get to the fountain, which I'll talk about with a spoiler because, I have some thoughts. So it's not a bad episode. It's got all of the traditional elements, the imagination, not as much imaginary play as previously. There wasn't as much left to the imagination, which is a bit of a shame. But I don't feel like that's the direction Barney's going in. I just feel like it was this episode wasn't as strong as previous. But there were still some great songs, education about the outdoors, definitely championing parks and public spaces. Because the thing about parks is if you don't use them, they'll go away. It's like libraries. People who don't use libraries but complain that they're going away, well, it's your own fault. I love the library. But the point is, it really does celebrate parks and getting outdoors and exploring the world around you. And then we have the fountain. Do I have anything else to say that's not a spoiler? No, I don't think I do. It's a good episode, not the best, didn't love the editing. It did help to kind of bring it into the 21st century. But other than that, it still feels like a classic Barney and Friends episode. So the fountain, this is a spoiler. I'm going to discuss the fountain. Spoilers from now. What an anticlimax. First of all, that's not environmentally friendly to put it in that kind of packaging with that many packing peanuts. But it's very tiny. Barney-sized, yes, but it was a bit anticlimactic. But, if you put water in it and the birds can have a drink, then that's all that matters, I guess. So it wasn't what I was expecting. Not a bad episode, not the best. Definitely some decisions that were made that I don't necessarily think were the best ideas. But generally feels like a classic Barney.